Welcome back, everyone. This is Chase Anderson, and joining me today is Craig McLaughlin, Senior Director of eCommerce with Vista Outdoor. Thanks for joining me.
Absolutely, Chase. Pleasure to be here.
Yeah, thanks for taking some time. I should mention as well, you're based here in Cache Valley, and we always like interviewing local people who are close here to the university, especially people who have been a part of local brands like a Camp Chef. So with that, do you mind sharing a little bit about kind of your background and what your role is currently?
Sure. I mean, how far back do you want me to go? And to be honest,
As far back as you're willing to share, I guess.
yeah. Well, as far as e-commerce goes, I've been in the business for quite a while now, about 20 or so years. One of the early days of e-commerce. I actually got my start in just actually doing programming back in the mid '80s, and kind of left that behind me for a little bit. Just basic stuff like Pascal. Did it on like an old Atari 800 XL system. Some people may know what that is. It's pretty old stuff now, ancient in fact. But no, did that and kind of got a taste for it. And then when the, kind of the late '90s rolled around, I was found myself kind of in a position where I could kind of tinker around again with computers, because computers kind of moved on a little bit. You had like 386s and 486s, and you could actually do more with computers than just basic programming. So I picked it up again and got involved with actually designing kind of visually the look and feel of websites, and then finally got into the back end programming of websites. And then that just naturally led to e-commerce because it was emerging at the time, right? People were looking for ways to monetize and make money online. So I was lucky enough at the time to hire on with a company that was local that did seat covers. And they actually had a website, and we built a lot of what we call lookup engines. These are like PHP was the programming language that we used, and we used that language to build these online catalogs where you could actually go in and select your year, make, model of vehicle and pick an arrangement of seat cover patterns to fit your vehicle. Actually did quite well with that and turned that technology around so that other websites could use it. So they had, without doing anything, the ability to sell custom seat covers on their website. So that was kind of where I got my first sort of real sort of e-commerce chops, so to speak, was doing that kind of stuff. And then over the years, just progressed from that kind of work into sort of doing work for agencies, e-commerce work, and then ultimately to a local brand that we have in the Valley called Camp Chef. Maybe some of your viewers will know that brand, but spent 14 or so years there helping them grow e-commerce into a good sized chunk of their business. Great company to work for. I really enjoyed my time there. But really what led me to this job today, where I work for Vista, is actually Vista purchased Camp Chef and actually asked me to come to corporate to kind of help sort of enact that vision, that e-commerce vision, across all the different companies that Vista owns. And that's kind of where we're at today. So maybe not that strange of a path to e-commerce, to corporate life, but a path nonetheless.
Right. Well, we'll get into all of this because I know that there's a lot to talk about. With you cover a lot of brands, a lot of very different products, and maybe you can share a little bit. What is the composition of Vista right now? I mean, Camp Chef is one of many brands that this company owns. What are some of the other brands that people might recognize?
Oh, brands like Camelbak, the hydration company.
Yeah.
Brands like Bell and Giro, those are bicycle helmets, kind of bike accessory companies. Brands like Bushnell, kind of they do optics and like rifle scopes for guns. We have some ammunition companies that we own as well, like Federal Premium, CCI, Spear. So, I mean, these are recognized brands, but most people don't know that it's actually owned by one corporation. And Vista itself is actually fairly new to the whole business. I mean, they've only been around 5 or so years, but they've made their mark. They've gone out and acquired these brands and are trying to grow those brands as sort of part of a bigger sort of outdoor products initiative.
Right. And for those who don't know, Vista kind of spun out of ATK. Is that right?
Yeah, I believe so. Yep.
And kind of set up shop here in Utah. The headquarters is no longer here, but you've got brands that are here, and you've got Vista employees like yourself who are kind of working remotely. And and to our knowledge, you're the only Vista employee here working remotely, and you have the Camp Chef team that's here in Cache Valley, but you're a Vista employee who's here in the area, right?
Yeah, that's true. I mean, the Camp Chef team, we're all part of Vista. We're all one family. They obviously are focused on growing the Camp Chef brand. But yeah, as far as overall for Vista, I'm one of the few employees that they have in Utah that work for corporate. But it's actually a good situation because I'm kind of in between where all the businesses are. So I can travel to the West Coast to be with some of our brands. I can travel to the East Coast to be with the rest of them. So it actually works out.
Oh, that's great. Well, we haven't really addressed kind of what's happening currently in the world. And I'd love to hear your perspective. How are the brands faring in this time of COVID, and in your world? I mean, e-commerce is so important, right? People can't necessarily go to stores. You can, but not a lot of people are going out to stores and buying a Camp Chef in person, I imagine. But there's probably a few people who are buying those online. What are kind of the state of things right now from your perspective?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, obviously with COVID-19, it's really, upset kind of the marketplace. Traditional ways of doing business have obviously had to change. I mean, we've seen it in how we have to go, get takeout from restaurants and things like that. In terms of brands and brands that would normally sell to retailers, yeah, it's shaken things up. Those brands have had to pivot and do more with sort of the online resources that they have. What's interesting about Vista and the brands that we have, when you think about them, is that they're all kind of based in the outdoors. So things like Camelbak, where you're putting on a water pack and you're riding your bike, like Giro. I mean, these are kind of, get away from everyone sort of activities. So if you think about it, we kind of, our products embody social distancing. So to a certain respect, or to a certain extent, rather, we are actually doing quite well in this market because people are buying our products to go do those activities because they can't travel to Europe on vacation this spring or summer, right? They can't do it, take a trip to Disneyland because of, the airlines and just the general concern over COVID-19. So in a way, it's actually helped Vista. But more importantly, and I think this is kind of the lesson for everyone, is it just shows you how much of a part e-commerce can play in people's lives now. That it's not just from a business standpoint. Don't just look at it as another channel to sell on. It can actually facilitate a lot more than that, and you can use that channel to engage with consumers at a level where you usually relied on the stores or retailers to do that. So in a way, it's forcing businesses to make that pivot more aggressively. And the ones that were sort of tooled up and ready for it or had already been doing it are just reaping the rewards right now. But I guess the word of caution is if you're not moving or pivoting towards digital right now, if this situation with the virus hasn't made you sort of rethink what your strategy should be, then you're going to fall behind. So
Right. The thing that I've heard from so many people is, this whole situation kind of accelerated a lot of the trends or the directions that we were already moving. Right. It's like e-commerce was already big business, but it's just accelerated that even more. Streaming it, in i- rather than go to a movie theater, right? Like so much of this was already happening, and this has just kind of accelerated that even more. Um, what how's the response been across the brands? I mean, the outdoor is kind of the common thread, but you have very different consumers of different products, from the bike category to more the gun side of things, to Camelback, to Camp Chef, right? I mean, those kind of attract different audiences in some ways not. How's the response been across the brands where you're seeing um, things overall? Like, has there been have some parts of the business struggled more than others?
yeah, I think so. I mean, I think there's pockets of greatness and there's pockets of, oh, we kind of missed the boat. But I guess the big thing is that the consumers is kind of what's driving this, right? In the situation that we're in, consumers always have the need for the product regardless, and they don't want to give up their ability to purchase something they're interested in just because of an economic or a marketplace situation. Obviously, people still want to go out and enjoy the outdoors and have fun. Some of our brands are pivoted better to that. Some of our brands are doing things that they haven't done before in order to engage with not only consumers, but also retailers as well. I'll give an example. Our Camp Chef brand is actually doing, instead of traveling and going to large sort of, conventions to try and sell product to a dealer or to a rep, they're doing it online now. They're actually shooting videos where they have sort of like a community get together where all of the reps and the dealers can actually watch the videos and learn and get the sales pitch for the product there as opposed to doing it in person. And yeah, some brands have done that kind of stuff before, but the thing is, it's a necessity now because you can't travel. And the feedback from those brands on that is actually really positive, or from the dealers on that is really positive. They actually like the format. um,
Right.
turn, turn that negative, so to speak, into a positive.
Right. Now how long have you been working remotely?
Oh, coming up for a year now.
Okay, so you had been doing this well before everything broke out and companies started sending people home. What was that like for Vista at large? At Camp Chef, some of the other brands. I imagine there was a push to have everyone work from home.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, every state, kind of has their own rules. Every county has their own rules. Every business unit. We kind of followed a corporate policy is to make sure we get as many people remote as possible. Obviously, it's difficult to do for every employee because some don't have jobs that require that they're in front of a computer every day. I'm thinking of things like, warehouse folk, that
Yeah.
kind of thing, manufacturing folk. So it's difficult for them because we still had to work out schedules that would make them able to do their jobs. And we did that. But for most of the other employees that are sort of, computer bound in terms of what their role is or function, the transition was actually pretty smooth. There were some connectivity issues that we had to work through to make sure everyone had access to Zoom and Skype and and all the rest of it. But I wouldn't say that any sort of I wouldn't say that we've seen any sort of drop in productivity, other than the warehouse piece of it gets to be a little bit more complicated. But in terms of daily interactions, the fact that everyone loves the idea of getting up in the morning and not having to put your street clothes on, kind of made people kind of a bit more relaxed and willing to engage through a digital format. And we have long days still. I mean, today was a marathon of calls back to back to back, but that's kind of the new norm, I guess. But the benefit is that you can step away from your computer for a minute and be in a quiet space where inside an office you can't normally do that. So there's pluses and minuses.
Right. And how was that experience for you prior to, the rest of the company going remote? I mean, you've been working remotely for a while. What's that experience been like for you?
It took a while to get used to. I wouldn't say that I've fully adapted to it because I do like an office environment. I do like, the interaction, but at the same time, I feel a bit more productive being remote because it allows you more time to focus. You don't have that meeting distraction per se of someone coming in saying, hey, we got to discuss this problem right now. You don't have all that ad hocness that kind of happens when you're inside an office. You can be a bit more structured, which I find nice. But I mean, overall, remote for me, you're always fighting those pains or frustrations of just being somewhat isolated from what's going on. But I think as more people adapt to this format, certainly for me, you realize you can be equally as productive. I don't see a downside to it. I just see you having to make an adjustment to it.
Right. And in a way, you've been separated from the brands that you work with. I mean, for a while. I mean, I guess like the brands that you oversee, like are all over the country regardless. Like even if you were working at, one of these brands, you'd still be far from all the other ones, right? So it really doesn't matter where you are located in a way. But um I guess where do you kind of see the future of things at Vista? I know it's really early to tell, and we've seen drastic examples of companies like Twitter, have come out and said our employees can work remotely forever. That's not going to be normal or the standard for everybody. But any idea kind of where you see things going? It's hard to know, but
Yeah, it's hard to know. I mean, that's a really complex question because every brand that we have, every business is slightly different. Their needs are different. I think obviously the idea is to get people, back to work and comfortable in the environments that they're in. So hopefully we get the virus thing behind us. But I would hope that, kind of the way that we've done this and gone about sort of coping with COVID, that it's opened some eyes to possibilities, right? As far as, hey, maybe it isn't, a full week's worth of work inside an office. What if the schedules were more flexible, that maybe remote could figure into part of it, right? So that the business hours could more fit kind of the lifestyles that we all want to lead. That would be a cool outcome. I don't know if that'll happen, um, but I think there's enough data there now because we've done it for a while that an argument could be made that maybe, as a corporation or any business for that matter could be just more accommodating to their employees and not feel like they're going to lose out on the productivity of that employee just because you allow them to work from home for a day.
yeah, I think that's always been the fear. But in some cases, you've seen studies that have shown an increase in productivity, right? I mean, everyone's data is a little different, but yeah, I definitely feel like that's that could be an outcome, right? People are starting to recognize, oh yeah, maybe we're not necessarily losing out on anything, and people are happier, and you know what, maybe they don't have as long of a commute, and that work life balance is better, and yeah, I think there's a lot of positive outcomes. I mean, that's just naming a few. There's plenty of others, along with some issues that might come with it too. But
Well, I
I
also think too that for a really responsible employee, they take the approach that they want to fight against that perception that you lose productivity when somebody works from home.
yeah,
I don't want to be the person that lives up to that expectation. I think there's a lot of employees that once working remote, they actually feel more responsible because they know that they'll be judged based on what they get done so I feel like people are kind of overcompensating and want to be there all the time, so it's actually probably making people work longer than shorter
right,
because
yeah, no, I think so too.
yeah.
I think the line of work that you're in is like perfectly suited for really the future that we're moving into. I feel like, I mean, your work can be done remotely. People are buying more online. It seems like everything's trending the direction that you're in. So what excites you about the future, and particularly the future with Vista e-commerce?
I just think there's a ton of potential there still. I don't think we're even halfway down the road of where we need to be, and I don't mean that in a negative sense. I mean that in a positive sense. I think for Vista and its brands, its family of brands, we're just scratching the surface of what's possible. When you think about, you know, how much more aggressively we can market online, the fact that there's untold number of untouched audiences out there that we just haven't engaged with yet, um, because maybe we've been selling through traditional sales channels for so long. But now with digital, we can reach out to those other groups that maybe we didn't think we could reach before, because now we have a digital interaction that we can have with them, and we can ship the product to them quickly too. It's not like they have to wait months and months and months to get a product. So I think there's a huge potential for Vista and for any company in the outdoor market still. Um, I don't think anyone in the outdoor industry is tapped out in any way, shape, or form. I think there's still more room to grow.
Right. You obviously work here in the Valley, have a connection to this community, especially with your time at Camp Chef, and you could work from a lot of different places working remotely. What excites you about this community and the potential for a really vibrant outdoor industry here in the Cache Valley?
I think what excites me about the community is just the community itself, right? It's the right size. It's got the right amenities. It's not a huge population center, but it has enough to keep you interested. And then also just the proximity to things around you that, as far as outdoor activities, right? Road biking, mountain biking, skiing. It's literally minutes away, or just off go out your driveway and then you're on the road. So I think all of those community aspects I like. What I would like to see happen more in our community is a bit more digitally focused companies show up. I think we've got a lot of good technology and science because of USU, obviously. I think we've got a lot of good homegrown businesses in the Valley. Maloof, Camp Chef. I mean, there's all kinds of examples. Camp Saver. Those are all businesses that are doing really well with e-commerce. But I'd like to see more of it, and I would like to see um, Cache Valley become sort of known for that, kind of in the same way that Provo and Orem are kind of known for technology or being a technology center. I don't know that we want to be that big, but I
Yeah.
think there's still plenty of room for businesses to move in here. Because if you think about it, they've got ready access to kids coming out of USU that are passionate about technology. So those are people that you can get involved in your business very early on, and have them grow within your business and keep them in the Valley. Because I think there was this notion, and it's still out there, that you get educated, you're in a small community, you go to the big community to kind of make your mark, make your money, and then come back to the small community. And I get the logic and the flow of that, but does it have to be that way for everyone? No, it doesn't. I think you can make a good lifestyle and living in a community like ours, where you kind of grow everything that you want here for yourself, as opposed to going somewhere else to get it.
Right. I think that's been one of the struggles, right? Is people haven't noticed or heard the examples of people who have done that here, who have kind of proven that model, wrong in a way, or carved out their own path or created their own opportunities. I think some of these companies are proving that, right? You have Maloof that is having a massive amount of success. Especially their recent announcement of 1,000 new jobs over 10 years. I mean, that's going to be monumental for this community. But that's a story that I think is starting to show, graduates like, oh, that couple that started Maloof, they were they studied it here at Utah State and they chose to stay and build something rather than leave and then come back. I was victim to that as well. I went to school and that was kind of just the natural order of things. It's no, you graduate, you go to Logan, you graduate, and then you leave. And luckily I've been able to find an opportunity that keeps me here. But I think it's got to take more of these success stories to wake people up and show people, oh, there's so many benefits of being here, shorter commutes, closer proximity to outdoor recreation opportunities, a great community that you can be a part of. But I think you're right. I think we've got to land a few more success stories around the outdoor industry, and hopefully our program can help drive that. But I think there's some real opportunity for that as well, especially with kind of this move. It seems like more of a move towards remote work. I think there's an opportunity for more outdoor employees to be here in our community.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'd love to see the community go in that direction. And the good thing is, when if you're like a city planner, or Cache County or whatever, we can add this additional business to the Valley without adding considerable infrastructure. right? Because if people are working remote, it's not like you have to build a big office building. I know they kind of miss out on tax revenue that way, but at the same time, you're getting the benefit of more people in your community contributing taxes without all of the infrastructure that normally goes in industry that goes along with it.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And then those people spending right in the community, which,
Right.
is another huge benefit. So yeah, I think I've mentioned this to you before. There's a few other remote employees that work for large outdoor companies that I know of that are in this community. And I'll be curious to see how that develops with everything that's been going on. Maybe there's an opportunity to start, working with those individuals to try to attract, or build teams around those people that are here, um, and try to get some momentum.
Yeah. I
But you're right.
mean,
There's got to be a couple success stories before we start to see the snowball move.
eventually, someday we'll get to a point where you choose to work doesn't determine where you have to live. That's the utopia that everyone wants to get to. And obviously, for some industries, it's easier than others. I mean, if you're purely a tech company and your whole product is digitally based, meaning it's software, yeah, you could ostensibly live anywhere. But for companies that have commitments to either manufacturing facilities or large distribution centers, I mean, they are going to have a physical force there. But I would hope that as time goes on, more businesses would choose to locate and be kind of in remote communities like ours, as opposed to outside of a large metropolitan area like San Francisco or something like that. I think it would behoove some companies to kind of maybe take that approach, because in the end of the day, I think we'll see that their employees will be more fulfilled, happier, and not have to deal with the stresses of being sort of overrun by society and population.
Right. And I think the outdoor industry is specifically suited for that. The outdoor industry is all about getting out into these remote places, right? Being some level of quality of life, being closer to the natural world. So you'd think that more of these outdoor companies would be, trying to get to these types of places. I don't know if we've completely seen that yet. Maybe this is, that moment that's going to move that needle forward. I don't
Yeah,
know.
well,
We'll see.
the thing is too, for a lot of businesses, especially ones that are coming out of back east or California or whatever, when they think remote, they think Salt Lake is remote.
Yeah,
so,
that's true. It's
so
all relative. Yeah.
yeah, it's all relative. So if you think about our community, we're a remote community over already a remote community, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's kind of how it goes.
Well, we already don't show up on the map. I know I've mentioned that to you before. It's, the Utah map ends at Ogden. So,
Right. There's
um,
nothing further north.
yeah. So and part of that is I think, there's an opportunity for our program to play a part in that, and try to, raise the profile of this community, and hopefully bring business in, and, because there is a huge resource in the amount of talent that's coming out of our program, out of the business school, a lot of, out of a lot of the programs that are up here. So definitely an opportunity to kind of have some gravity and start to pull things our way, hopefully.
Yep, I agree.
So, well, I don't want to take too much of your time, but any other thoughts, kind of just how you've been facing this, thoughts about the business? It's been great to just hear your perspective.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, closing remarks, I guess. I would just like to see more people just really take on the notion of using e-commerce as a career path. I think there's a lot of people that think very straight lined. I mean, in terms of their career, they think, well, I can be a salesperson, or I can be a doctor, an engineer, or and they, but e-commerce has a whole variety of specialization within it. Everything from like digital marketing people to programmers to people that understand sales, people that well, I mean, with the advent of social media, you've got influencers, and I mean, there's all variety of jobs that relate to generating revenue through e-commerce or online. So I guess that would be the thing that I would like to see, is more people be exposed to just what e-commerce encompasses, and how maybe they can participate and take part in it. Because I think from a career standpoint, the cool thing about e-commerce is you can learn a skill set and master it and then jump to the next one. And what that does over time is just make you supremely well-rounded, and able to jump in at different points for any business that's out there. So you may you may spend 3 or 4 or 5 years at a business, learn 3 skill sets that relate to e-commerce, and take that knowledge and go to a different business where you may have a more senior role. And I think that's a good way to think about how to get educated, how to get involved, and how to move yourself forward in a career path.
Right. Yeah, those skills are definitely transferable.
Yep.
No, I think that's helpful, and I think kind of a different perspective because we talk a lot about product and product design and development and that side of things. I I wanted to have this conversation to show the other side of that, right? And there's so if you're not the design person, there's so many other opportunities to get involved and interact with the product, but just on the other end, in a different way. And there's plenty of opportunity for that. And in some ways, this is like a growing opportunity. We're just going to see, I think, roles in kind of the direction that you've gone just become more valuable.
Yeah, I mean, a great example and a way to look at it is if you go back 15 or so years ago, when anyone said anything web or e-commerce, usually when you saw a job advertisement, it was for a webmaster, right?
Hmm.
That was like the all-encompassing title for someone that knew how to do stuff online. And but that job is essentially gone now, and it's been replaced by like 15 different other specializations. So that just shows you how the industry has sort of grown, and then its footprint has broadened. And I think that's what's cool about e-commerce, because all the roles and specializations that we have today are going to be different again in another 5 years, just because of how fast the market moves and how fast e-commerce moves. So there's always going to be something new ahead.
Right. Totally. Well, that's great. Thanks for letting us, peek behind the curtain. You pulled it back, and just shared so much about kind of your day to day and what you're working on. I think it was really helpful. So
Yeah,
thanks for
appreciate
being
it.
willing to take some time.